Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome once again to another Property Matters podcast. We have Hamish McClay, fresh from his journeys and sojourns elsewhere, back once again in his field of bluebells, which is always pleasing to see. And once again, we are here to discuss moves and changes in the property market, particularly looking to the future. And to that note, I believe today's discussion is going to be on the subject of the smart property revolution. So I'm going to toss the caber to you, as it were, Hamish, to explain it to me in words of one syllable or less.
Right. I think we perhaps need to pursue this a little bit further, and maybe we'll actually add in the topic with Michelle Carr, who is much more familiar with construction and how we are going to prepare for the future of this smart style of housing.
Yeah, we can talk about aspirations all we like. She's very much more boots on the ground. Will tell us. We can tell her what we think should happen, and she'll tell us what is practical.
That's why I think it will extend to next week, so we can actually cover that aspect with Michelle. We have in part covered it because Michelle's very much involved with what goes on in the day-to-day process within building sites. But we have to actually sort of think, we're really speaking about looking at it from the perspective of the buyers and the landlords who are going to have to be buying into these particular properties
Right.
that the likes of Michelle is going to oversee the building of. Now, what it is, of course, it's some smart technology isn't quite as smart as it was originally thought it to be. And there are other ways of circumnavigating certain aspects of, if you like, the provisions of energy and all sorts of other things. And it has been decided that what we need to do is to make everything much more energy efficient.
Well, that seems like an honourable ideal on the face of it.
You would think, yes, and indeed it is. Without thinking about it, without looking at processes, it would be rather sort of foolish and foolhardy to say, right, we'll go into the 30s with exactly the same way that we got into the 20s. And we know as a consequence of, if you like, what is sort of happening with our climate and how much it's changing and what we can do about it. However, there's a big challenge of what we do for energy provision, because what we need to be thinking about, all these houses that are going to be built. Now, we're going through planning processes at the moment. Government are ramping up. Government are going to be imposing, so they tell us. They're going to be imposing quite significant sums of money on any builders who get behind too much on any sort of build program. Yet what we're going to have to do within this build program is to put in some additional items. Now, big push. Let's all get the electric motors. Now, fortunately, they've pushed off the day when every motor has to be electrically driven. I think we'll come up with some alternatives before that does actually happen anyway. However, there are going to be a vast increase in basically electrical vehicles on the road compared to what we are now, as a consequence of which we're going to need charging points. And I would think the majority of people, when they're moving into a new house with their new electric car, would expect to be arriving at their house having a charge facility. Now,
hang on a moment. Before you go there, I was reading in the Scientific American, and this is going back a few months, this year though, that there was an old concept which has started to see the light of day, which is the concept of continuous charging through trickle feed as you drive. So in other words, effectively induction points throughout the roads, meaning you never run out of charge. You end up with no range anxiety, and you don't necessarily have to have a charge point in the home. Do you see what I mean?
That is a smart way of thinking. Who's going to pay for it?
Yeah. You are. Oh, and me.
And who the hell's going to do that on the roads that are already in one hell of a state?
Well, now that is another problem entirely. Well, maybe if I joking aside, maybe it's a good excuse for them to actually do the roads properly.
Can they afford to do the roads properly?
No, that is an entirely different thing. But
whatever we do, there are bound to be implications. And I thought of this let us put it in perspective that we do need to actually, well, certain cars are going to need it. How long is it going to take to have these wonderful, wonderful things? I mean, when you look at how long it takes to actually put smart information on the motorways,
right?
I mean, some of them still haven't caught up to date with all of these things that they need to do. They're still putting in electrical transmissions along motorways, and of course, the mileage of motorways is significantly less than country roads. You can put in the country roads. Wow.
Yeah, I can't see that ever truly happening. That would be
lovely if it happened. Built in with the vehicle, whilst that vehicle, if we can use that kind of technology, so it is charging as it runs, that's absolutely great. And it may need to be, this is where we might need to have an alternative thing. And this, of course, is why this discussions like this need to take place. Let's assume that certainly in the short term, there is going to be a dramatic increase in the number of charge points that there are available. First of all, people are going to expect them in houses. They're going to ask them to be installed in their houses. I mean, it's a fantastic money-making, I can say scam, fantastic money-making business at the moment. Now, what we need to do is look at where are the majority of electronic components manufactured.
I mean, there's the alternative, which is hydrogen fuel cell technology, which is
we're not allowed that yet. They're not going to put hydrogen fuel cells into the roofs and things of that nature yet. We'll save that for a discussion in 18 months.
Okay, I'll put a pin in it till then. But you're quite right. It was the proliferation of electric vehicles, Tesla notwithstanding, that's an anomaly, I think. But in general terms, Polaris, obviously Volvo, Renault, Ford, certainly, they're all looking towards that. My nephew is one of the chief prototyping engineers at Ford's, and he tells me that as of, I think it was 2 years ago, I didn't realize that, they used to have, because he used to be there to put engines into these sealed rooms and then try and blow them up. That was his job. Great fun. They used to do one for petrol and for diesel. They used to have what they called test cells. All test cells are gone now. All of them. They're only focusing on electrics over here, certainly. And that means to me, if they're putting that much time, energy, and effort into that, that's probably where the market's going. And if that's the case, then your thoughts about the proliferation of electric vehicles on the roads are completely there. But the battery technology is still in its infancy. All of that is still changing. I don't know. All the cards appear to be still up in the air, Hamish.
There could be, but if you can't charge your vehicle,
let me predict a future. Late night on a Saturday, and you look around and you're just on the roads, randomly littered around vehicles that have run out of charge.
Yes. Well, you won't be able to see them, will you? Because it'll be too dark. But because they've switched off the lights or
yes, of course.
One wonders. However, let's get back to what we were discussing. So we were sidetracked there. We were spiked.
Apologies, my fault. I apologize.
Let's assume that vehicles need to be charged. Let's assume there's only 100% increase in the demand for these things to be charged.
So is your issue about infrastructure and not being able to support it, frankly?
But what I was going to say, I mean, it's all very well. The houses are going to require these to be built when they're built, which requires the supply and the availability of these additional components. And what I was asking, where are these components manufactured? Who's set up to manufacture these components? And like you say, much is in its infancy. Where how's that going to come about? Are we going to be able to build houses and put those in? The other challenge is, what do you do in a block of flats?
Oh, oh God, that's
Royal
yeah.
Artillery Keys, you've got 16 stories, 200 flats.
You have
Only,
to
only have
assume that in 200 flats, at least 80% of them will be wanting to have a car of some sort.
I was going to suggest 130 vehicles, but we need 130 sort of charge points.
Fair enough.
Who the hell pays for them? I mean, do all of the... We're going to worry about that. We've got to plan to build it to enable that to happen. We've got a situation at the moment, haven't we? I mean, if you drive around Bicester, the number of, if you like, the very, very early sort of council houses that were sort of built here, they don't have any parking facilities outside the house. It's on the road outside of the garden. So how do they get charged?
Well, I believe there was a scheme in Cambridge to put charging points into all the street lights, so that if you were near enough to one of them, yoink, and you can do that. But I still don't think that would cover it.
I don't think it will.
No, not at all.
So we need to worry about charge points. Are we going to have enough of those? Where are we going to buy the componentry from to actually provide it? Even if there aren't enough, we're going to need to put in a certain number, surely. So that's going to need to be built into the planning. Your planning is going. Is there a planning? Do you need to put in a planning application to have these charge points? Are there going to be certain conditions applicable to the installation? I guess, like other electrical installations, that would be important. Next thing, of course, we have, and we know about this particular sort of one, it is being suggested that residential properties should have within their structure, on the roofs would seem to be the sensible place to put these solar panels. Right. So we put solar panels on the roof. Now, this in itself is all very good. However, we need to have the availability of what percentage of solar panels we're going to have to start manufacturing in order to enable every single house that's built, or large proportion of houses that are being built, will have solar panels available to actually put on the roof. Does it take longer to build a house once you have to put solar panels on the roof than one without? So we've got additional installation with the solar panels.
Well, I've got two. I mean, I've gone through the whole process of having solar panels put on. I went through a government scheme. Incidentally, amusingly enough, it was completely cocked up the first time, and because the installers, unbeknown to me, decided to instead of gently moving the slates apart and putting it to the actual structure of the roof underneath, they actually connected them to the slates, and the whole thing was gracefully sliding off the roof. Got it repaired, got it done. Apparently, the technology is changing that again, and they're becoming yet more efficient, and the process of installing them is becoming faster. I think adding solar panels also is an interesting thing, because there's also moves afoot to try and create networks of solar panels that people effectively buy into, and then get a distributed effect from. So if you're not getting the sun, but somebody 10 miles away is, theoretically it will share. But all of this is pipe dreams at the moment. There's no uniform approach to it, and as I said, the battery technology and the solar panel technology is all changing right now. So I don't even know where to start with this.
Is this going to cause something of a challenge, you feel? Me asking you what?
Well, I know about this kind of technology because I'm a geek and I'm into that sort of thing. But yes, it's a major challenge because of two things. One is the method for installing and putting in solar panels is all changing. It was brackets, move things around, screw it to joists, fix up, put brackets, cover up, finished. Now it's going to be where they actually put roof tiles, which are solar panels, and then hook them all together. So instead of applying solar panels onto it, the roof becomes the solar panel.
That's amazing. That is another smart method, another smart way forward.
But there's no uniform way of doing it. They can't all agree who's going to be responsible. And the other thing is, battery technology is literally, I think this year and next year, dramatically changing. So that the energy density inside the box that's going to store it suddenly doubles, triples, quadruples, and something literally year on year, which means you have to replace the whole bloody lot downstairs where you've got the batteries, or upstairs where you've got the batteries, to take advantage of it. And I don't know where the will, the money, or the impetus is to do that.
Well, do we have a source for these battery, the contents of the battery, which are made up from these rarer materials?
Well, they're changing it around. The smart movers and shakers in the business are trying to move away from the rare earth materials and the strip mining required lithium ion type stuff, the lipo stuff, and they're trying to work towards a more silicon based thing, which is obviously available everywhere, but it's not ready yet. There's other form factors as well. Silver, I think, I can't remember, with silver something or other, which is very, very thin, but quite expensive to manufacture. I don't know. It's just not settled. We're not, like classic building technology. I know it's moved on quite a lot over the last 20 or 30 years, but it's relatively settled. If you say, I want to build a wall, there are certain ways of doing it, and you'll get on to do it. Whereas if you say you want to build a solar farm, it's changing day by day.
The other challenge we face, although we do have certain standards that we're meant to apply to building techniques, as we find they aren't always applied, are they? So what we have is a situation here, which rather than actually tackling something that would resolve many of these issues, we are creating the issues before we found a solution.
Classic.
Is that the way I read it?
No, you're reading it absolutely as is. We've got energy requirements soaring, not just because electric cars. We've got influx of people from all over the world. I mean, legally, I'm not talking about illegal stuff, just legally, our population is growing, which means there's going to be more of a requirement. I was hearing a discussion on the radio earlier. The use of technology which requires electricity is on the increase, not decrease. I mean, when we were young, we'd go out on our bikes, build trees, fall over tree stumps. I did a bit of that this morning. I mean, the falling over bit. And doing all that sort of stuff, which didn't require electricity. Now it's everybody's at home on their PlayStations, on their computers, on their phones, or everything which requires electricity. The focus is on activities and the driving of cars, of course, all of which require electricity. Electricity usage in the domestic home is soaring, and it doesn't look like it's abating anytime soon. So yes, we may be coming across all these wonderful so-called free electricity sources, but it's not keeping pace. You see what I mean? Demand is outstripping supply many times over. So we may come up with all these wonderful smart methods, putting the energy creation, if it ever goes in the driveway, in the roads, putting the solar panels as the roof rather than on the roof. All of that wonderful stuff, but it's just not enough. It's not quick enough. And by the time they put it in, suddenly the energy requirements are even higher. I don't know where.
There are possible solutions, and I mean, locally here we decided and been told in no uncertain terms that it does cost 10 to 12 million pounds to convert a roundabout into something which is controlled, which enables pedestrians and cyclists to go around it. So we count up all of the major roundabouts sort of around Bicester and figure out what's going to happen to them. What we could do, of course, we could have all of these cyclists on the road, and we could actually link them up at the house. So when they got back to the house, we could regulate this. They had for 10 minutes to sit there pedaling and create energy from their pedaling to increase the availability of such things.
Do you ever watch a program called Black Mirror, which is talking about some dystopian future? Sounds a little bit like we're going into that kind of territory.
Oh, I see. So maybe we've got a bit of thinking to do. I'd be interesting. I wonder if we can perhaps ask Michelle if what we're actually planning to do, because major investment in developments that are going to be taking place, you see, we're already in 2025. So any major developments that there are, they need to get all of that planning together, put it all together, put it all in place in order for them to build in 2028. They need to be doing it now. So what are they planning to put in the houses now?
Wow. Yeah. And all right, look, I'll tell you what, would you take us home, please, Hamish?
Well, I think I pretty well have. We need to get more people on bikes with a facility outside of the house to add to their energy sort of.
I go a stage further for you, Hamish. Why don't we make the front hall of every house into one of those walking conveyor belt type things? So as we walk in, we have to walk on it for 5 minutes just to generate enough electricity so we can then watch the television that evening.
We might actually be able to sort of switch it over. So if you want to watch television, you have to do the walking.
Do you know what? That might not be a bad idea. To all of you watching, thank you so much for putting up with the two of us banging backwards and forwards. But I think what we can see is we're dealing with a technology that's by no means sorted, that uses technology that in itself is constantly changing. And yet here we are constantly using more and more electricity, the cars on the roads, the ever increased use of electricity within the home. And yet none of it's really sorted. All of it seems up in the air. My goodness, do we need Michelle? She might be able to bring some sanity to our proceedings. To all of you out there, never fear. Property Matters, Ipsa Kind of Magic, Property Quorum, and of course Cladding Matters, and occasionally Construction Matters are all here to try and give you different views and ideas of what could be our new, improved, 100% vegan future. But who knows? It's all around the corner, and only discussion will help alleviate the way forward. Until next time, please keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, look after that mental health, and for goodness sake, unplug that kettle. No, don't. No, go on. Have a cup of tea. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye now.